Okay, wonderful. Thank you everybody for joining us. We heard from Mech at our last product weekly meeting where you reviewed how and why labels are important for purposes of categorizing types of work. And we wanted to take the discussion a little further to talk about technical spikes. How should we handle those? What kind of labels should we use? So I passed over a couple of examples from product intelligence and thought we could go from there.
Great, thank you. And for context, people watching the call, we need to really align on bugs, features, maintenance, because that's what the industry analysts use. It's not like we want to just do this out of thin air. We want us to communicate our efforts in a clear format that the industry understands. We need to communicate in a consistent form throughout our org as well.
What was it? Bugs, features, and maintenance?
Bugs, features, and maintenance.
Okay. Got it. Okay, so where would you like to start?
I think we have a good base definition of bugs, features, and maintenance now. I want to be really clear that maintenance is upkeeping efforts and catch-up improvements. And for this purpose, this meeting is to dive into what spikes are and how can we categorize within the spike, how would they fit in these three buckets. So we can take a look at the existing spike issues and see the types of work, specifically merge requests that comes out of it, and then go from there.
Okay.
And I'm just going to raise the possibility. I think in the end, the answer might be there might be two different types of spikes, which will of course make it complicated, but I'm not 100% sold we're going to be able to say all spikes fit X, but we'll see.
No, I agree. I mean, just from my own experience, I know we've spiked on how to approach a feature versus how to solve a bug versus, yeah.
Okay.
And are the spikes normally, they're just issues to come up with a solution? Do you normally spin out the solving of the problem in a different issue?
Yeah, only if it's not readily known the path that we're going to take, or if it's still too high level of an idea and not broken down enough. So we spend the first 3 days of the milestone breaking down issues, and that's where they're going through the issue, they're weighting it, making a very high level technical plan of how it will be approached. And in that time, if it's not readily known without more research, then we convert it to a spike. And in the milestone, then somebody takes it and actually does the research on, okay, what is the technical plan to address this thing? And they're meant to create, if it's multiple issues, an epic and the issues with a high level structure of what needs to be done. If it's not multiple issues, one or two issues, just the issue output. And then they communicate the blocking relationship to me, so I'm able to prioritize appropriately. But we do this very routinely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I just wanted to confirm my understanding as I went through there.
We do two types. So the exact same type as Amanda does, where I'm trying to solve this bug or feature. And when we do our planning breakdown, we find out that we can't because it's just too complex and there's a hidden thing. And that's where we get the first type. The second type is when I just don't know what I want to do. So that's all on me. And so like right now, for example, I'm having a spike where we test out wrapping a open source tool versus making a really crappy version of an internally written tool. And at the end of the spike, the developer will come to me and say, if we were to proceed with the open source thing, this is my high level, like how I would break up the epic and issues. If we were to go with writing it ourselves, here would be the epic and issues. And here's the pros and cons and the potential swag time difference. And then I will decide based on the pros and cons and everything they've shared with me, which way we're going. So in some cases, it's how do I solve this one problem? And another time it's like, well, there's two ways to solve the problem. Which way do we want to go? And we don't really have enough yet to answer that.
That's a great point. We also do that. Like I've done a build versus buy where they've given me the options and what the pros and cons and costs. And I've also done should we take on this work or should we ask the data team to do it? Because we can do it in one place, further upstream, or data team can do it downstream, and they collaborate with the data team in that spike to both weigh the options and give a recommendation. So that's a really good point. It's actually not solving anything or creating any issues as an output, but rather give me the information I need to then make a decision.
Okay. And just for my own knowledge, this is done during planning breakdown or solutions validation?
No, actually, it's so for my team, we get into the first 3 days, which is planning breakdown, and we identify candidates for these spikes. It's too big to be solved in those 3 days. Then it becomes a spike for the entire milestone. So an engineer gets assigned to it for the entire milestone. We weight it appropriately. Most of our spikes weigh around 5 when there's tons of unknowns, but sometimes we'll get a 2 or 3 if it's a smaller level of effort.
Okay.
And what they're merging for me, and in my experience, is typically a proposal or a breakdown of work. And they'll do that to the GitLab repo that we can reference later.
For me, I already know what the customer outcome is, because the customer outcome is I need to solve this thing. The how is what we're solving in this particular case. I think in both cases, though, the end result is a epic and issues and a high-level technical plan. It's just that first one has a direct path. The second one has a PM in the middle making a decision before you get to that end goal.
Okay. It's from collecting data, it sounds to me that the problem to solve is not labeling spike as something, but actually the spike is informing us the types of work that's needed to be done to complete the effort. So it's not like, let's label the spike feature enhancement. No, it's like the spike is actually going to tell us what are the actual type of work that's going to come out of it.
And
Yeah.
the size and scope, right?
Right. And this guy, size and scope.
And the size and scope. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think we should be clear about that. Like the spike is actually helping us get more accurate of what types of work it is. And we shouldn't just conflate the two. That spike should be a maintenance thing. Spike is a combination of things, and going through the spike process gets us a better idea of what those are.
And in some cases, it might be, this is going to be a very, very large thing. I'm putting it in the backlog and running away. Like it may.
Yeah, it helps us decide where it lands on a roadmap based on size and level of effort in comparison to other things.
Okay.
It also makes, in my opinion, in my experience, it gives our team it helps them with a higher velocity, because we are intentional about slowing down and breaking something down rather than trying to jump in, figure it out, and deliver it in the same milestone. So our cadence accounts for that. And so when the next person picks it up, it's like super shovel ready, right? It's all nice and clean and they just run with it.
Okay. So it's taking a pause so you can leapfrog 2 steps.
Yeah.
In the future.
Exactly.
Okay.
We kind of call that pre-work, right? Like you're just planning
pre-work.
for the pre-work, and then you're able to be productive when it comes time to do it.
Right.
Okay. Can we look at a few spike outputs? I actually did some homework early on in point 1. I saw a dependency update in one of the issues. I think it was Rails upgrade in 1A. And then B is the big one where I see a combination of improving the test gap and then new metrics definition. So my read on this is it's probably a blend of feature type and then maintenance type from 1B.
I don't think the second one is a good example because I don't think we shipped anything there. I'd rather give you something more recent. So
Okay, that's great.
Applicable.
I looked at that because I saw the team metrics definition was going to change, and then there was one MR that added new tests to make sure the key paths are
So
preserved.
we have something very similar to 1B on my team where I
Cool.
asked, I'll see if I can find it, but I asked Will to go through and be like, what are we not testing? And he came out with a list of here is what you are not testing. And then I created an epic for add these tests. It was just that exciting.
I need to add a product there on the whiteboard. The quality is everyone responsible with product support. Thank you.
So while you're
Amanda-
looking for that, I'll share one with you.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so I'm just going to drop it in E here for linking purposes, but I'm going to share my screen. So this was a pretty recent one. We have really elaborate ones and others that aren't super elaborate. This is somewhere in the middle. So this was an engineer had an idea for creating a separate app for service ping metrics. So she dug in and created this overview. And then this is what she merged. She actually merged the proposal, which we then took further, even further. Actually, Nikolai merged the proposal. And he provided, what he ended up providing was two options. Here's this, right, solution one. Let me put it in the other view, sorry. Okay, then option two, and at the end, he told me the cost for the two, right? So see how they'll actually do like technical drawings of the solutions with ideas of how to implement, right? All of this, Here's solution two. Here's solution two. Then in the end, he's basically talking to me, right? And he's saying the pros and cons of the two and the estimated amount of time, right? So first solution here ends up being several milestones. Second solution, 3 milestones. Second solution, like 1.5. And they give us, in the text, the pros and cons of each. Another one that was very heavily used was we did a similar thing for when we were trying to figure out how we would pseudonymize data, personally identifiable data. And they did a very similar thing, but that technical spike lasted like 3 milestones where it was just so much research. But the output was the same. They gave me a couple of choices to go. I made a decision on which way we're going to go based on costs and pros and cons. And then we built from there.
Are these MRs towards the project that are shipped to customers, or are they towards a different separate project that you store plans and technical?
You know what? We originally had a public repo where we had proposals, and because of some of the pseudonymization work, we put it in the product intelligence repo, which I think it is public, but I don't know if where we're saving the files, if that's open. Yeah, let's see. No, proposals are locked. The proposal folder is locked.
My proposals or spikes go public. And right now it's interesting. I know this is recorded, so I'm trying to pick my words here. We have multiple open source communities trying to assist us with our evaluation of which open source tool to potentially include as part of the solution for an upcoming feature. And they are all being very helpful because the issue was public, which is a good thing. But now we also have like too many interested parties.
Right, it gets tough to manage. On our side, the reason why ours is locked is because we do discuss things related to privacy and security, and in a similar vein, it could, I think, take fire pretty quickly with the community. And so we're vetting our ideas and then publishing. So what we typically do in this space is we talk about it, technical proposals and so forth. Then once we make a decision on direction, we then post a blog post to say, here's what we're thinking, here's why. And we typically reveal the other things that we have considered. And here's why we decided this direction, because we do care about privacy, but we're trying to kind of be in an incubator for a minute to make that decision, or at least a recommendation. And then we blog post it to get feedback.
Okay. So the output is not technical additions to the source code yet, but
Right.
you
That's
have
correct. That's correct.
proposals,
Mhm.
diagrams, all the architectural blueprints.
Exactly.
I think Kyle nailed it easier, or it allows you to leapfrog when you start the next time. So there's no real code there, but there's a much better starting block.
Mhm.
That decision is critical too. Like you all talked about that. So like getting information for that is helpful. But yeah, when it comes time to add the code, it's probably much clearer, the plan, versus getting stuck and then having the whole team swarm it when it's prioritized and maybe the most important thing to do at that moment.
I also found this very useful. I don't know if it's helpful context, but very useful in fulfillment. I had started this when I was in fulfillment because we had to give such concrete estimates of when something might ship because we had to make commitments to the community typically. So being able to really vet which direction you're going helped to give a confidence level before you could start work. Kyle, thank you so much for the typing.
Yeah, no problem. I'm curious if this is documented in the handbook anywhere, like your process. I'd like to try and incorporate little pieces into my own team management.
I'll
If
take
it's
a
not,
look.
it's okay.
Yeah, I'll take a look. I do have a little bit in the how we work in just like the breakdown phase of the first 3 days. I don't know if I talk about technical spikes specifically, but I'll take a look. If not, I should add it.
Okay.
I think we're in a similar boat where I just say, if it becomes too large, ask the PM to convert it to a spike. But what is a spike is kind of undefined, I think, and it's just like, if this is looking like a 5 or an 8, stop.
Do all product groups use Spike, or is it partial usage?
Everyone I know does, but
Okay.
I don't know everyone.
Okay. I think better planning is great. I think more prep for clarity on execution. I think we can all put our positive advocacy for that. So coming back to the cause of this meeting, how to label the output of this spike. Do you feel that we have enough of the categories defined to capture the spike weight? It sounds like there's some documentation coming out of it. There's some code as well. Do you feel that there's enough categorization, or is
So
it something else
based
that's
on
missing?
your generic description during the meeting, what I think I would have done if we didn't go into clarifying is I would have decided what is the work that is going to come out of this be classified as, and I will classify the spike as the same. So for example, if the result of the spike is a feature enhancement, then it's going to be a feature because this is work related to figuring out how to do the feature, even if it goes into the backlog because it ends up being ginormous. Whereas if it's the outcome is how do we fix this bug, this giant persistent persnickety bug, then I would label it as a bug. And so I think kind of phrasing it as if you have a piece of work that you're doing, a proof of concept, a spike, the outcome of that, what is the direct value to the customer when you reach that outcome? That would have been my guess, but I was like, I don't know, because like everything was very clearly defined, and I'm like, I don't want to just toss something in there and then have all of us doing it our own way, because that's not going to help anyone.
I was heading that direction as well, absent some other direction. I was just going to do what is the ultimate thing that we will produce one day, and this is just the first step of it, and label it according to that.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. it also hones in the point that spike helps us get more accurate of what the output type is, and then just classifying the spike as such. What if a spike contains more than one type, like a blend of version upgrades and enhancements to the UI for how would we go about with that?
I usually pick whichever one's related to an OKR because that's the hotness, which is not scientific in any way, shape, or form. But if I have to weigh between two issues and one is the hotness, that's probably going to allow me to prioritize it more. So that's the label it's getting.
Okay. Or the majority of work, if it's the majority of its feature-ish type and just label it. Yeah, I think that's a good guidance going forward given the current iteration.
Makes sense to me.
Cool. What do you need us to capture in the handbook to enable you to move in what we discussed earlier?
I think, what do you think, Nicole? Like just a bullet that basically says, if your output isn't actual code, but a spike to figure out how to do the code, use the label that you would apply to what the I'm not good with words.
Yeah. So both of us are like, please find a tech writer. But when you find a tech writer, I think, like Amanda said, but maybe even more generic, if the work you are doing does not directly match the examples below, decide, the label based on what the end result of that work is. For example, if it is a spike or, a research project, that the outcome is going to be fixing a bug, it's a bug. If the outcome is going to be a new feature, it's a feature. And in the event that, and then like another bullet, in the event that something has multiple components to it, whichever one is the majority of the work should get the, that label chosen, or if it's all equal, pick the one that is the more important one to the company at the time or something. But tech writer words better there.
Okay, I think that's great. Let's add a guidance under that section in work type classifications titled "How to Label Work During Spike." How to label spike work. Does that sound like a good step forward? Okay, sorry about my cat. Is it my cat?
It could also be my cat. So who knows?
I don't have a cat. I just have kids.
Yeah, me too. I'll take that MR just to add a subheading for that. Since the original one was merged, I'll open a new one and tag the three of you with it. Feel free to bring in whoever you want. I'll look for a technical writer to wordsmith my poorly worded thing that will come out of it.
That's great. Great iteration. I like we're moving into areas now with concerns, addressing them, putting in the handbook, ensuring clarity, and then communicating it out. Great iteration.
Great. Thank you all. And once that merges, or even if it's not merged, I'll link it in the next product weekly in the read-only section, just so
Perfect.
everybody's aware of the outcome.
Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thanks for the
Anytime.
questions, setting it up.
Have a good
Bye,
rest of the day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.